neither civilian nor military in that area. It's two major cities surrounded by 70 villages. There's a big chunk of the population that lives there. All the Palestinian ministries are there. All the offices and bulk of NGOs are there. UN have a prison there. But not a single Jew last year was spotted in that area. This year, in the 6 weeks that I was there, I would say almost on a daily basis, there is incursion and invasion to the areas of the so-called Palestinian Authority. They will come to the cities and they allow the settlers to attack the villages. There were quite few young men that became shaheed in those villages because of the settlers. And in the cities, they are gathering young men and women from their homes, taking them to jail. At this point, there are 12,000 Palestinians who are in their jails. 3,000 of them are not accused of anything. There is a law from the time of the British. A law from the time of the British. It's called administrative detention, where basically the Israeli authorities can take anybody, anyone, young or old, man or woman, just name it, anybody, either from the street or they go to their homes at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes break the door and break into the home. Unless the family realize that they are coming, they will open the door and they will take those young men and women without any due process at all. Just take them from the street and put them in jail for 3 months. That's the British law. See, the British have gone from Palestine in their military long time ago, but still this law is being applied. And after the 3 months finish, they will renew for another 3 months. 3 months finish, another 3 months, they renew for another 3 months. So basically somebody could stay in jail for years on administrative detention. The case of Sheikh Jamal Tawil and his daughter, Bushra Tawil, alaykum assalam, was in the media. So basically this Sheikh, this Imam, was in the prison, administrative detention. His daughter was there, administrative detention. So he declared hunger strike. He said, I do not want to get out. That's not what I'm asking. I want my daughter to get out of prison. And he went on a hunger strike. And it lasted some time until the Zionists came to the conclusion that it's best to let her out rather than him die in jail. This is just one example of those so-called administrative detention. Now there are 950 military checkpoints in the West Bank. Again, so far we did not mention Gaza. I'm just talking about what I have seen in my trip. Gaza is off limits. We'll talk about Gaza a little later where things are. It's a totally different world. We do not even compare what's happening in the West Bank with what's happening in Gaza. But what I wanted to put you in the picture that this thing in the past few months have deteriorated for the people of Palestine in the West Bank for reasons. that we will discuss shortly. At one point, they close the entrances and, of course, the exits to this whole area in Ramallah and Al-Bira and the 70 villages. Of course, how to get there, they just close the roads. And there are a few thousand people who work every day in the two towns, and they go home in the evening. Because basically the rent is very high in the city, so they live in the villages, or the village happen to be their home, where their family is. So suddenly thousands of people find themselves stranded, nowhere to go. The evening comes, the night comes, and they still close the city. Where to go? Of course, those who have relatives or close friends that could accommodate them, they went there, but they are a small percentage. Eventually, they ended up opening the mosques and the municipalities, al-baladiyat, for them to sleep. I know of a sister who's a dentist in the town, and her baby waiting for the milk from his mother, she ended up sleeping in the town, and her baby is in the village, and there's no way to reach there. Now, you come and say, why don't you go to the checkpoint and try to reason with those army people? Forget it. Forget it. Because they do not see the people in Palestine as human beings. Just the way that they see the people in Gaza as kill and kill and kill. All those children that's being killed in Gaza, what they have to do with the resistance? All those projects, what they have to do, same thing in the West Bank. It's a question of making the life of the people so difficult that try to drive them away if an opportunity comes to leave. That's a big objective, making life very difficult for the normal person. Again, we are not talking about people who carry guns and try to fire at Israeli soldiers. We are not talking about those. We are talking about the common Muhammad, Mahmoud, Layla, Fatima, and Abdullah. To go from Nablus to Al-Khalil, Nablus in the north and Khalil is in the south, forget it. Don't even think of it. They just come and put iron bars, huge, at the entrance of the cities. And you are there stuck. If you are not from that place, you cannot leave. This have increased drastically as of 6 months ago. As of 6 months ago, things were still difficult, but not at the level that we have seen. Even with American passport, I would go to the military checkpoints when there's no, of course, when they close it, it's closed for all. They do not recognize any tourist or anybody when they close it for their own reasons. But if those military checkpoints are open and you go as an American citizen or a Canadian citizen, in fact, I have met a Portuguese citizen. She is at the university trying to find a subject for her PhD from Portugal. She told me that she was held in Eilat. She came from Egypt for 4 hours. She's like around 30 years old, student. 4 hours to be held at the checkpoint, what is it they are looking for? What is it? I mean, this is not even a Muslimah. This is not even a Muslimah. They really want to see if this person have any feeling, positive feeling toward Palestine and the Palestinian people. That's all. If she can demonstrate that she is pro-Zionist and Zionism, door is wide open. If she is unknown, or she has things that are there on the social media, then it's a no. And this brings me to the other change. Usually in my talks in here, I would encourage the Muslims in America, especially the young brothers and sisters, to go and visit, to connect with the Masjid al-Aqsa, to connect with Palestine, because that's what drives those Zionists crazy, to see Muslims from different backgrounds coming to Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. But now I would say, for a young person in their mid-20s or so, by yourself don't go. Because you will be put on the plane that drive you to Tel Aviv. They will just hold you at the airport, put you on the next plane and send you back home. Unless you are going with your mother and father. That's a different story. They have different consideration. I'm not sure what's the logic. I may guess, but that's the logic. I mean, on a typical day, you will see in Turkey, the bulk of the Turkish sisters and brothers who come, they come by themselves. They are, I would say, 40, 50, plus or minus years old. No children, no young among them, in general. But the Muslims who come from London, Britain, and South Africa, mostly from Indian, Pakistani, Bengali background, you will find a young man in his 20s with his young wife and maybe a baby, and his father or her father and his mother or her mother. Those are allowed in after they go through their phones at the airport and some questions. You know, when they come, sometimes they held them in the airport for 6-7 hours. But those, they are still allowed to come. But for somebody who's going to go on his own, and I remember the second week that I arrived there, a brother local from Raleigh here, he said, you know, I am in Amman, and I want to come and visit Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. I said, well, since you are in Amman, it doesn't hurt, you know, try it. You know, there's a bridge on the Jordan River. It's called King Hussein Bridge, and the Jews called it Alembi Bridge, the name of the general, British general, who took Jerusalem in during the World War I, 1914. And he came after a long wait, hours upon hours waiting. They just said, denied, go back. They do not need to give any explanation. They do not need to justify anything. Basically, the same officer at the crossing in the airport or in the bridge, he have total authority. Total authority. For the first time, a member of my own family who does not have residency but lives most of the time in the West Bank was denied entrance on the bridge, which was unusual because his wife was with him and his wife have residency. Even by law, he can go to the court and say, you know, my wife is here, she have residency. I mean, if you go through the whole process, eventually you will get in. So he asked the guy, I mean, can I talk to your manager? Can I talk to somebody who's responsible? He said, I am the one who's responsible. If I say yes, you in. If you say no, you are out and you are out. He was stuck in Jordan for 9 days, applying with special forms and appeals and this and that before he was let in. That's why I'm saying these all are new things. They were not there before. They were not there before in this regard. The question is why this is happening. Why this is happening. Why the government there would allow basically the soldiers to roam free in the West Bank. Not just arresting people. And believe it or not, those soldiers, they steal gold when they enter and search the homes. They steal whatever dollars or shekels that they get their hands on. And if they do not find anything and they find the children piggy bank, they will take the children piggy bank. If the family is observing and they can call the commander, meaning the person who's responsible for the whole team, and said, this guy in his pocket is my money, then you have a good chance of recovering it. Said, give them their money back. Now, if you did not see it, you only realize it after they are gone. Just to be fair. If the commander is there, because the commander is held to a higher standard by the army. If you come and say such and such commander, he was there, they stole the money. They know who was the commander at the time, who was in that area. But soldiers in general, not at all. I mean, they steal left and right. And people start really wondering what to do with whatever money that's there. Now, you might say, why didn't they put it in the banks? That's another story. That's not, by itself, because the banks were threatened by Smotrich, who is the Minister of Finance. If you are to lend the Palestinian Authority any money, we'll confiscate your property and shut you down. So they are doing these steps. First of all, it started when the European countries said that in September, in this month, we're going to recognize a Palestinian state. That's what started this whole new downturn in the life of the people of Palestine. So we had 10 countries that announced a while back. First of all, it was 3-4 countries. Eventually, they became 10 countries. That during the General Assembly of the UN, they will recognize a Palestinian state. Of course, where is this Palestinian state? I mean, there are 850,000 settlers in the West Bank living among the people. Where are you going to establish this state? But those countries, I guess the bulk of them, they really feel guilty, I think, for what they are seeing in Gaza, and some of them are giving weapons even to the Zionists to continue the operation, and they want to pretend that they are doing something for the people of Palestine. This applies to Britain, it applies to France, it applies to other countries, not necessarily to Spain. Spain have taken some really outstanding measures against those Zionists. So those 10 countries, France, Britain, Belgium, Portugal, Spain, Luxembourg, Canada, Australia, they said in December, in this September, they will recognize a Palestinian state, and that's why the Israelis start preparing to really hit the people in Palestine in the West Bank much harder than before, for a few reasons. For a few reasons. And I'll talk about those reasons. What is it that the Israelis aimed at, other than trying to make the life of the people hell so that whoever can leave will leave. But today there was a development in this regard. Some of you might have seen the news today Britain, Canada, Australia, and Portugal today announced that they are recognizing a Palestinian state. And that got the political leadership of the Zionists to go crazy, said we will respond in time, and I'll talk about what they are talking about, the response. You see Netanyahu saying today, I'm going to America, I'm going to meet with my friend Donald Trump. This will be our 4th meeting. No other leader met with him for 4th time. You know, as if you meet with 3 or 4 times, you're going to get closer to Jannah, yani, in this regard. You know, no other leader have met with him for 4 times, and then we will announce. Because today the extreme right wing ministers and Likud and others are calling for the annexation of a big chunk of the West Bank. That's the key word. So all what the Israelis have been doing in the past few months in the West Bank of closure, making the life of the people hell, trying to go from one place to other is a big challenge that even for necessities like a funeral, a wedding, why bother? Why bother? Because they want to be sure if they took a step in that direction, there will not be an uprising. There will not be an intifada. In fact, they have reoccupied the West Bank. You can say easily that the West Bank now has been reoccupied. I mean, when you have the army, I'm just going to mention some of what they have experienced. So we were sitting in a masjid between Maghrib and Isha. Some people were reading the Quran and some people were chatting. And suddenly, bullets start flying around the masjid. So what happened? Some of those soldiers came walking, supported by 1, 2, or 3 military vehicles behind them, and they start walking in the streets. So what do you expect? The young kids, 10, 12, they go get stones and they start throwing stones at the army. And then the army starts shooting left and right. I mean, the fact that the people are in their places, in their masajid, in their homes, and in the way that they have whatever activity they are doing, and the army will come and they start walking in the middle of the town. One stone is enough that the bullets are flying all over the place. Another example. I was leaving home for Fajr prayer. Fajr is around 5 a.m. These days it's moving quickly. So I left my home walking. It's about 7 minutes walk. So I can go to the masjid from the left or from the right. There's like a cemetery that's expand the street so you can go from the left or from the right. So I went from the left and I hear this sound, which is the sound of the garbage truck. So I thought, garbage truck at 5 a.m., what they're doing here? I mean, people are asleep. So when I was within about 30, 40 meters, I recognized this is not the garbage truck, this is a huge military truck where gather people, they collect people from their homes and put them in those trucks. I noticed this because there was a military jeep next to them. So at that point when I was within about 30, 40 meters, the sound came, stop. Okay, so I just stopped. Flashlights start coming my way. I'm sure taking pictures and this and that. And after about 5 minutes, go home. There was not even a question of why, where, anything. Just go home. I was wearing this white thobe. So I went back, but I did not go home. I went from the other side for the masjid. And in the middle of the way, the truck and the jeep were behind me, getting close. I said, wow, now we're going to stop, because he told me go home. And I did not go home. I went the other way because I want to go for Fajr prayer. But alhamdulillah, luckily they passed me and they went down to the mountain to go to the settlements. When I got to the masjid, there's this brother who comes every day to Fajr, who usually come early to read Quran. But that day, he arrived maybe 2 or 3 minutes before the Imam said, Allahu Akbar. So I was telling him, look, in front of your home, I saw those people and they asked me to go. He said, oh, you know why they were there? I said, no. He said, I opened my house, they live in a building, to go to the masjid for Fajr prayer. And he said, I found so many machine guns on my face. I said, what do you want? He said, the last time that they came to my home, they broke the door on us while we were asleep. And they took his son. They told him, we want they named somebody who happened to be his nephew. So he said, don't break their door. For those who do not know, Gaza and the West Bank, the land is so expensive because it's a small piece of land. There's not much land. So what happened, a father buy a piece of land, build a house for himself and his kids. When the kids grow up, get married, they build another floor on the top, the other son another floor. So you can find, and that's why in Gaza, when they say a whole family is wiped out, because there will be 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 brothers living in the same building. It's 8 floors, and each floor may have 7 or 8 members, children, plus the husband and the wife. So when they said the whole family in Gaza is wiped out, that's what it means. That the Israelis have destroyed this building when those people are, asleep or in that building at night, and that's why this whole building. Similarly, this home that I'm talking about, it's the whole family lives in that home. But each one have its own flat or its own section. So this is really what people in the West Bank, as I said, are going through. So again, the aim is get the life of the people so difficult that if anybody gets the chance to leave, that they will leave. Secondly, to be sure that when they announce annexation of part of the West Bank or the major part of the West Bank, there will not be an uprising because the army is all over the place. In fact, they withdrew a section of the army from Gaza and brought it to the West Bank. So that's an objective by itself, that this annexation is coming. It's a question of what is it they will annex. Which part of the West Bank they will annex. I mean, they made it clear in the last 6 months, absolutely no Palestinian state on the west of the Jordan River. And they made it clear also that some of this land will be annexed and be part of Israel, just that the way that they annexed Golan Heights. The preparation was when those countries, the 10 of them, will stand in the UN, announce recognition of Palestinian state, that the Israelis will announce at the same time annexation. For a reason or other, only 3 countries or 4 countries came today and make the announcement. And the Israeli government said, we will have a response in a few days after he will meet with Trump. So what are those options? The main thing is to annex the so-called Jordan River Valley. There's an area that is close to the Jordan River from the north to the south. It's very rich land. There's bulk of the land is really for agriculture. Much of the dates that come from Palestine come from there. Lots of fruits and vegetables. So basically, one of the main objectives is to annex all of this land from the north to the south. The second objective is to annex the part of the West Bank, or the parts of the West Bank. They have lots of land, relatively, of course, but few residents. There are areas in each city, on the outskirts of the city, where they already prevented people from building. They're called Area G or Area C. If they would annex Ghor al-Urdun, this Jordan Valley lowland, and those places, basically, what would remain is the main cities in Palestine. And the Israelis, not just the Zionists among them, have no interest in those cities. You might ask why? Because under international law, if you annex those cities, you will be responsible for the education, for the health care, and for whatever else that's needed. And this is a huge amount of money to pay over, for example, 10 years to the budget that the Zionists have. I mean, imagine at this point, when the time came to open the schools, the private schools in the West Bank all opened on time. Then there's the UN schools for refugees, because there are refugees within Palestine who stayed, just like refugees in Lebanon, refugees in Syria. There are people who were driven from their homes in 1948. They ended up in the West Bank. You know, next to each city, you will find a camp. So next to Qalandia, there is Mukhayyam Qalandia. Next to Al-Bira Ramallah, there is Al-Am'ari, and there is, other smaller camps. Next to Ariha, there is, or I should say Beit Lahem, there is Aida camp. Next to Ariha is Aqb al-Jabr camp. Next to Jenin is Jenin camp. Those are people who were, thrown out of their homes. So those go to schools run by the UN. However, in Jerusalem, Beit Hanina and Shafat, which is in that area, the Zionists closed the UN schools. So basically the children have nowhere to go, because they said the UN is out of the Israeli territory. They cannot function. So what happened to the public schools? They did not open because the Palestinian Authority have no money. I'm sure traditionally they have lots of money. It was wasted, stolen, and abused. But they came and said, we don't have money. So the schools did not open until after, I think, about 10 days. They said that they will pay part of the salary. So they told the schools to open for 3 days, because they only will give them partial salary, and they said, rest of the time you go and find a job, because people need to live and support their families. So for them to annex those big cities, it means that they have to give the salaries for the teachers, they have to give the salaries for the health care providers, they have to do all of this, and they are not interested in any of this. Of course, there's a segment among them who really want to drive the people in the cities out of Palestine. Now, let me mention two things about the West Bank, and then we'll talk about Gaza. Netanyahu, in an interview with the Israeli media, he says, I am dreaming of the big, large, greater Israel. You know what he's talking about? The West Bank, Gaza, Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, part of Egypt, and part of Iraq. That's the greater Israel. Now you say, why does he say this in those circumstances? Because he cannot claim any win, neither in the West Bank nor in Gaza. So he wants to brag and talk about these things. In fact, the week that I came, he said that Israel is like the greater Sparta. For those who are familiar with Sparta, it's a town, city in the old days during the time of the Romans that have stood firm and defeat their enemies. But what is interesting is that the Israeli scholars pointed to him that the people of Sparta, eventually all of them were killed. He said, what is it you are comparing us to? But it's this attitude that I want to change the Middle East. I want to have the greater Israel. And of course, the Arab countries, as usual, upset and issued statement in this regard. In 24 hours, the Israeli army bombed Gaza and Lebanon and Syria and Qatar in 24 hours. The second day, they bombed Yemen. No, in the 24 hours, they only bombed those countries. The second day, they bombed Yemen. Now, you can say for Yemen, they have been throwing at them missiles. But what did Syria do? Nothing. What did Lebanon do? Nothing. What did Qatar do? Oh, they say, well, Qatar is housing the terrorists. Well, for your information, it was the American government and the Israeli government that asks Qatar to open an office for Hamas in Qatar. If you remember, not this summer, last summer, when the Zionists in Washington, D.C. start attacking Qatar in the media and the American media that Qatar support terrorism and Qatar support this and this and that, the Qatari embassy in Washington issued a statement saying it was the U.S. government and their allies, the Israeli government, that asked us to open an office for Hamas so that they can communicate with them. And now they come and say, they are supporters of this. Although Qatar was the first country in the Arab world after Egypt to open an office and Jordan to open an office for the Zionists in Doha. As for Gaza, it's totally a different world. And I think many of you, hopefully, are aware and follow what is happening. Yes, I know we are more than 720 days into that. And we have no reason as Muslims to come and say it's taken too long. We have other things to discuss. We have other interests. We have this and we have that. I mean, if the people of Gaza for the last 2 years, they have been going at it, what kind of excuse do we have not to keep going? Either supporting them through the legitimate organizations in the U.S. financially, or through social media, through the universities, through the boycott. I mean, the Israelis are scared to death of this movement around the world to isolate them, make them an outcast. And they keep talking about, people keep talking about Netanyahu, that you are isolating us. You are putting us as an outcast. Israelis now go to vacation in Europe and they hide their identity. People are putting signs in stores in Germany and in Greece and others, Jews are not welcome. All of this because of Gaza. I mean, they have been kings and queens in Europe and the US. Even in the US, many of the young Jews, according to the Pew Research, they are supporting Hamas over the Israelis. Because they are doing this genocide. It has only one explanation, that they want to kill all the people of Palestine that they can kill at this stage, and they will kill more later on. The former head of the Israeli army said last week, it's in the Israeli media, I have the article. He said, we took the gloves and we killed and injured 200,000 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip, which has 2.2 million. I mean, he's bragging about it. Their own estimation, nowhere come and says the people in Gaza who are resisting are more than 20,000 plus or minus. And some estimate 30, 40,000. And we are talking about a population that's being destroyed in front of the world, the eyes of the world. You hear that the last 2 weeks we're going to start destroying all those projects. So you see buildings that are 20 and 30 floors that house thousands of people. They're saying now those are places for the terrorists. Wow. I mean, this thing has been going for 2 years. Now you realize, of course, it's not. Absolutely not. What is happening is there is no chance for him to declare victory on anything. The Israeli experts, the American experts are saying this Gaza invasion will not give you victory, will not liberate the hostages, and will not destroy Hamas. Those are American and Israeli strategists and thinkers saying, what is the justification for this Gaza invasion? Of course, you know and I know what's the justification. Because the more Palestinians he kills, the more the right wing will applaud him. And the more popular will be in a section of the population. There is no doubt that the Zionists in Palestine have lost their humanity. No doubt about it. I mean, when you see children dying from hunger, and there's plenty of food a mile away, on the side of Egypt, a mile away, tons of food, they would not allow it in. Oh, if we allow it in, Hamas will use it. Well, even their own experts saying that that's not the case, and the UN saying that's not the case. We are talking about 2.2 million people that need food and need water. And as we have seen, that this thing is getting ready to try to wipe out and kill as many people as they can. And they are not hiding. They are not hiding this agenda. Smotrich have said it explicitly that the Palestinians have 3 choices. Either you leave Palestine, alaykum assalam, or you submit to us, or we'll kill you. I mean, this is a public statement. This is not something that he said in a closed room that somebody quoted him. This is a statement that he said in public, that the people of Palestine have 3 choices. You either leave Palestine, go anywhere else, or you submit to us, or we will kill you. I think they have realized after 75 years that the people of Palestine who are standing between this monster and the Ummah, they are not gonna submit. And they believe it's a matter of time. This colonial project will come to an end. They are not greater than the British Empire, or the French Empire, or the German Empire who have colonized the world. Eventually they had to leave. This is a colonial project. Or I should say a new colonial project after colonialism, at least in the theory, have come to an end. And what really struck you, if you go and visit Palestine, when you talk to the people of Palestine, They have this belief. 5 years, there will not be any Israel around. Now, what they are based this on, Allah knows. But this is a general belief. Yes, just be patient. We will be patient. Whatever comes, we will take it. We are not going to leave. We are not going to submit. So basically, the third choice is being implemented in Gaza. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect the Ummah in general, and the West Bank and Gaza, and Syria and Lebanon and Yemen and others from their evil. Because as I said, this is not a question of Palestine. The Prime Minister have made it clear. He's talking about the greater Israel. He's talking about Lebanon and Syria and Jordan and part of Iraq and part of Egypt. That's the greater Israel. This is the definition of the greater Israel. So this ummah need to recognize its responsibility. The world of conscience, the whole world need to recognize the evil of Zionism. It's an evil. It was born an evil idea of driving people by the hundreds of thousands from their homes and bring people from Europe, put them in their place. Because Europe has a Jewish problem at that time. They want to get rid of the Jews. So, okay, we'll just put them in Palestine. And unfortunately, the Ummah was asleep. So it was an easy task, unfortunately. And the 1967 phony war where Jordan gave up Jerusalem and the West Bank without a fight. Without a fight. Imagine, in 6 days, this Zionist army took over the whole of the West Bank, the whole of Sinai, the Golan Heights in 6 days. 6 days, you take all this land. It just tells you that when the colonialists have left, they put in place their stooges, that they are actually the enemies of this ummah. If somebody is dreaming that any of those leaders, kings or emirs or president will stand for Palestine, you are mistaken. And the Quran have discussed this aspect. وَلَوْ أَرَادُوا الْخُرُوجَ لَأَعَدُّوا لَهُ الْعُدَّةَ وَلَكِنْ كَرِهَ اللَّهُ بِعَاثَهُم فَثَبَّطَهُمْ وَقِيلَ قُعُدُوا مَعَ الْقَاعِدِينَ. Those are the munafiqs of the time of the Prophet ﷺ. They did not want to go and fight and support the deen. Allah said if they are to do it, they would have prepared. Those people did not make any preparation. They only get armies to protect them from their own people. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said He does not want to give them the honor of standing for His deen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate the suffering on the ummah and hasten the faraj from Him. Allahumma ameen. Jazakum Allahu khair wa barakallahu feekum. Subhanaka Allahumma bihamdik. Nashhadu an la ilaha illa